Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. It's an honor to virtually stand before you, a room filled with leaders like yourself shaping the future of your companies. Today, we're here to challenge a fundamental shift in how we think about workforce planning. We all recognize that our people are our greatest asset, but let's ask ourselves, do we really manage our workforce like an important thing to us, like they deserve? Do we apply all the same rigor, strategic forecast, and adaptability that we do to capital, technology, or infrastructure initiatives in our organization? In a world where agility defines success, workforce planning is no longer an HR function, it's a business imperative, and let's go and treat it as such. So over the next 2-ish hours, we'll explore how data technology and forward-thinking strategies can transform the way we invest in people, maximizing not just efficiency, but impact. That's the important piece here. So let's define workforce planning together. And this is a very, very warm welcome. So who is Simplify? Why are we here? And why does it make sense to even listen to us? Simplify is built on a strong partnership between experts in the finance area. We're all CPAs and or former FP&A practitioners with a very deep and broad knowledge around planning and analytics topics. We're the go-to partner for SAP and SAP's field teams when it comes to planning and analytics, specifically in the finance department, but more and more also since just a few years in other departments, and in this case, like the HR department, or like departmental managers that have to manage people and also the planning process around their personnel in the organization. So we're heavily focusing on business services, process design, quality assurance, and basically implementing at some point of time, according to your ideal process, the respective analytical solutions. What we're also offering is a full customer lifecycle support, right? So if you have any interest in SAP technology and you like what you're seeing with one of our many enterprise performance management applications, workforce planning like today is one of them, please reach out to us. We help you gauge the market. We help you put together a plan for yourself, select the right tools that SAP is offering, help you with the licensing. We can sell you the licenses as well. We implement, and most importantly, then also we take care of any post-sales process, meaning help you with adoption, helping you with building out a roadmap, what could be next on the horizon, in addition to, in this case, as of today, workforce planning as an example, right? You see on the right-hand side here, we have built many applications that go into more details than the classical financial planning and analysis process. Also here again, workforce planning is one of it, where we detail out the salary components in a typical profit and loss statement, with more details around people planning, around headcount planning, around planning on group level or on role level, etc. We will see a lot of this later on. How does the typical enterprise performance management process look like? It's an integrated business plan, right? Like you're seeing here on the slides from left to right, ending up in the upper portion here in your financials, because the CFO is the captain of your organization, if you will, steering your yacht into the future. And everything we're helping out here in terms of more detail, our planning feeds into the clear picture of the CFO. At the same time, of course, reporting is available to the other line of business leaders that are part of this process as well. In this case, of course, the CHRO has clear insights and reporting available for how the workforce planning process is looking like, and comparing this to your workforce management solution that you're having in place, and make sure that there is a good reconciliation from one to the other. EPM also means consolidations, by the way, right? So we're the only partner in the SAP ecosystem that supports the financial consolidation process, also within the same SAP Analytics Cloud platform that we're utilizing here. So if you look into what you are hearing from SAP through social media, through your interactions with SAP account executives, etc., is the Business Data Cloud is the next big thing for SAP, because it brings everything SAP is offering together, right? The strong transactional systems underneath, like a SuccessFactors, like an S/4HANA ERP system, like an Ariba for your purchasing, but also non-SAP models, right? If you're working on Workday instead of SuccessFactors, or on Coupa instead of Ariba, if you will, right? The SAP Business Data Cloud is bringing everything together and makes it available to IT and business leaders with full business context to drive more impactful decisions across your organization, right? That's what the data management component is bringing you off the BDC construct here, and make sure that data is understandable for business leaders as well, right? And all the insights you have on top here are basically covered through our enterprise performance management construct here. You get all the insights across all the LOBs, business units, and departments in your organization that you need in order to not only run your company on your transactional systems, but also now manage your company on the analytical components that enterprise performance management is bringing for you on top of it. And you're not alone, right? Many companies turn to Simplify solutions because of our unique blend of product and process expertise, providing full support throughout your whole customer journey, as mentioned earlier, right? From selecting and buying to implementing, adopting, and expanding SAP solutions in your environment. So this holistic approach solidifies our tech investment, your tech investment, excuse me, and ensures that not only integration runs smoothly, but also fosters a sustainable growth in your organization. So by partnering with us, you will gain a trusted ally that helps you navigate the complexities of typically of SAP solutions and touch points, ultimately driving your long-term success. So without further ado, I want to now hand over to Jason, who will walk you a little bit through the challenges in workforce planning as we see them occurring every day in our conversations with customers and or prospective customers. Jason, please take it away.
Good morning, afternoon, everybody. My name is Jason Reed, and just to start off, I had spent about 17 years with SAP, actually, in a variety of roles, product management, go-to-market, implementation work, and so on. And over those 17 years, I had worked with Simplify Solutions extensively. They were a preferred partner and one of the leading partners within the budgeting and planning and forecasting space. And I had the opportunity to join Simplify almost a year ago now. It's been a great year. And one of the things I will say is it was easy for me to make the decision to move to Simplify because of the customer success. Every time you talk to a customer that was working with Simplify, the implementation, the success, the follow-up, it makes a huge difference that every customer we speak to is a reference customer. And, I just wanted to get that out there to represent, that, a lot of what we're going to go through today are, in terms of the implementation capabilities, the content, that's the focus. And, that's what Simplify can certainly help within your implementations as well. So when we talk about what we're going to talk about today, whether, HR, HCM, workforce planning, PX, CX, there are a lot of terms that represent, I guess, the complex, but as Henry was saying, the very critical part of a company's employee and management, ecosystem. And like many parts of the planning ecosystem, whether it's finance or CapEx or OpEx or workforce planning, some of the major barriers to making a future-ready workforce, technology and a workforce solution is really based upon trying to move HR from that very technical and reactive part of a very technical and reactive response to a much more strategic and proactive response. So essentially, what does that mean in layman's terms? Well, moving away from just counting people and dealing with events as they're happening or as they just finished happening, into really understanding the risks and using new technologies and business models to align your organization and very much make them future ready. Next slide, Henry. So in that context, we're not going to be speaking about all those different elements of the employee ecosystem. In the session today, we're going to be covering, we're going to be focused on really the workforce planning and the headcount planning. And I just sort of gave a couple of examples there. Some of you might have success factors. I mean, that's an SAP specific solution, but I know others, there may be others who have other solutions. But success factors, I mean, you're dealing with, capabilities with a lot more around recruiting, talent management, compensation management, and so on. Whereas right now, we're really talking more about, what PlaniFi, based upon an SAP Analytics Cloud, platform, can deliver in terms of, workforce costs, full-time equivalents, employee movements, hiring, attrition, promotions, that type of thing. So again, that's what we're going to focus on today and the challenges associated with that. Next slide, Hunter. So what do we hear and what, when we're working with our customers? And again, one of the things I'll point out is, SAP Analytics Cloud, again, is a very powerful modeling tool in that it can support finance, workforce, CapEx, OpEx. And one of the things we do is often work with customers in one of these particular areas, and then the customer grows with new use cases and integrates across a much larger PlaniFi content capability, so that we are bringing together a lot of the planning needs and integrating them across the workforce. But what are the core things we're seeing out there in terms of some of the challenges? Well, believe it or not, there are still way too many spreadsheets out there. They're there. They are sometimes, they're great tools. They support a lot of data entry capabilities and allow you to do a certain amount of analysis and calculations. But when you take a look at the challenges associated with them, one worksheet turns into many worksheets, and many worksheets turns into workbooks, but turns into many workbooks, and you start to try to have a solution where you're emailing and cutting and pasting sections of workbooks in the Excel spreadsheets with no auditing capabilities. So again, it really is often a house of cards when it comes to some of the challenges facing workforce planning. Now, does that to say that every customer is going to get rid of their spreadsheets? Of course not. But from a platform core collaboration sense, worksheets need to be not the core part of your workforce planning solution. Other challenges: disaggregated data, data silos. Again, still so many different components, so many different data sources. Then again, a great source of challenge within our customers' organizations. I have a younger, better looking, smarter brother, if you ask him, and he works for a subdivision of a very large organization. I think their subdivision probably has 200 plus people, and the entire organization has about 15,000. And the third element there is something that he often responds to or talks to me about, is that this, the collaboration capability. How do you deal with the challenges around updating small, or smaller cost centers, but have to fit that into a much larger workforce planning schedule? How do you be seen? How do you promote and understand? How does it all work together from a big picture? So lack of collaboration being very much a challenge. And certainly, uncertainty, economic conditions, market fluctuations, changes in the economic, structures that are going around the world in downturns. I mean, these things happen, and they're always going to be there. But from a fundamental perspective, these are the core challenges that we're seeing and that our customers are representing to us today. Next slide, Henry. So again, this is just a continuation of my, where the challenges are. But again, moving from that very antiquated and tactical to the much more strategic and agile, capabilities. That's what our customers are saying they want to do and they need to do. So next slide. I guess the question in all here is how. Well, this is one part of how. In the fact that with SAC and PlaniFi, the content that we have, as Simplify, have created, all those different, functional capabilities, whether it's in finance, expense, strategy, HR, being able to bring those together in a single solution platform to allow you to have a seamless planning view across the organization is a key part of that. Next slide. Now, Henner spoke briefly about Business Data Cloud, and this is, again, where you're talking about moving from, reactive into proactive. Being able to use tools and technology like Business Data Cloud is a core part of the ability to change, to move from spreadsheets into solutions that will help drive your workforce planning. Now, again, to be clear, SAP Analytics Cloud as a platform to support what you want to do for workforce planning is very much a standalone system. But there are a lot of other capabilities in there. And if you do have tools that are actually SAP tools or not, the ability for us to integrate to many, many different sources with our PlaniFi content is a key part of that. And we believe we'll be able to really help you move again from that reactive to proactive workforce planning ecosystem. Next slide, please. This is a bit of a build out. This is just really a solution like SAP Analytics Cloud that has been evolving so powerfully over the last 10 years since its original release. Next slide, Henner. One of the things that we have, that's just been released is the fact that SAP Analytics Cloud, while it is very much a standalone and can be a standalone workforce planning solution, with Business Data Cloud, there are now there's a whole new capability to bring SAP Analytics Cloud models and dimensions and data and put them directly into DataSphere, which again is part of that Business Data Cloud platform. Next slide, Henry. So as you see, these particular capabilities are going to keep driving the whole ability to address and be proactive in your workforce planning. Yeah, just keep building out there a little bit. Yeah, exactly. So again, whether it is again standalone from a workforce planning solution, or whether there are challenges outside of that with many, many different data sources or many, many different solutions that you need to sort of bring into one, whether that's bringing in Excel data, and so on. There are the whole Business Data Cloud capability is really, bringing out again the whole ability to drive a much more robust workforce planning, seamless planning solution. Next slide, please. Now, again, these are talking about, AI. There's so many discussions today, so many people, using ChatGPT and so on. SAP has made it very clear they will and are an AI company. They have built tools and built capabilities into SAP Analytics Cloud, that we're using today, and they have built that out in Business Data Cloud to infuse workforce planning with generative AI. Right now, today, I can log into SAP Analytics Cloud and in the workforce planning content within PlaniFi content, and basically, using natural language, represent, show me the start and the end number of employees I have for the demand and supply. And show me as a chart for this particular part of the organization for this particular date. And I'm not in there creating and designing reports to give me that. I'm just typing in natural query language and having that deliver content, reports, graphs, and information using generative AI today. And this is not coming, this is there today and customers are using. Next slide, Henry. Again, at the core of all this, again, is moving from the ability to not just look at what has happened, not just report on what just happened, but being able to move down the path towards what should happen and what could happen. And this is the core behind the whole, the whole platform, the whole seamless planning platform that SAP has created, that we have built all the content out on to support your workforce planning needs. Next slide, please. I talked about the overuse and the reliance on spreadsheets before, but one of the things that that's still there in the solution and is still being addressed and built out on is the fact that I can very much have Excel embedded throughout SAP Analytics Cloud and our PlaniFi content, but also SAP DataSphere models as well. We're not forcing you, or SAP is not forcing you to give up your Excel add-in capability. It's going to be there, but it's not what you're building out your reliance on. And it's there and can be used. So we just wanted to point that out. The core of all this, of course, is the fact that as we move down this transformation, as we move down the capabilities and new technologies, AI and so on, we are moving away from spending all of our time on data preparation and validation into having the solution deliver us content that we can actually build strategic business decisions on ourselves. So that is a key thing that needs to happen and is happening today. Next slide, Henry. Okay, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. Looking forward to any questions you might have throughout the day.
Jason, thank you so much. I hope this brought you a little bit of insights about the context, why we're here and why workforce planning is so important, and how to tie this to SAP's strategy in order to deliver the technology platform that is needed to build out these sophisticated solutions in your organization. Next, we're going to hear from Kevin Crafting of Verano. He's the VP of Financial Planning and Analysis at Verano, one of the fastest growing companies in the market with a tremendous success story around their business model, but also fueled through, of course, software technology in the finance department and across the different supporting departments here. And let's take a look into Kevin's presentation.
So my name is Kevin Crafting. I am honored to kind of be here to talk about our workforce planning solution that we've implemented here at Verano Holdings. Okay, so Verano as a whole is a cannabis company based in Chicago, Illinois. We have been public for about 10 years now, or I guess we've been established for 10 years, public for about 5 to 6 years. We operate in 14 states, have nearly $1 billion of revenue, have 4,000 plus employees, have more than 150 operating retail locations. But in the grand scheme of things, we are still a relatively small and new company as a whole. So what does that mean? We have a lot of different processes that have been kind of migrated over time and have been evaluated over time as far as to make ourselves more efficient and effective in the long run. So this is our geographic footprint. Basically, we operate in these 14 states. Some of them are medical only. Most of them are now adult use and medical combined. Our latest entrance was into the state of Virginia. Our largest footprint here is within the state of Florida, Pennsylvania, Illinois, and everything else like that. Think of every state as its own separate country or entity, where most states have differing regulations when it comes to how you operate, how you manage employees, how you how or what products you can actually sell and how you categorize it. So there's a lot of nuances within our business that from an outsider's perspective may not necessarily understand. And to kind of put the cherry on top here, we have no interstate commerce because we are still federally illegal. So when it comes to each individual state's operations, we can only operate in that state. So this is pretty much a similar slide to the last one. It just kind of breaks down as far as the population size, kind of what we kind of view as far as medical versus adult use, the capacity that we can operate in, and then as far as from an overall market standpoint, where we can actually make significant headway when it comes to bettering our business as a whole. So why are we here today? Is to talk about workforce planning. And so with the help of Beth McBreen and Simplify and using prepackaged content from PlaniFi, one of the biggest things that we set forth at the end of 22, beginning of 23, was to really optimize our workforce planning and the workforce allocation methodology. And so where we were at before was we never really had an established process. I think I kind of, or by me stating before that we are a very immature company, we are still very new. A lot of those immature processes really took place there, where we would do this every so often. People's categorization of what job but that they were entitled to would change drastically. Manual P&L consolidation. So basically whatever input that we would get from every department or every leader of each division, we would have to manually create it. And then overall, it's where there's a lot of things that kind of took place with the lack of flexibility and tools within itself that made this very, very, very challenging. And so what we wanted to do is to be more proactive, more efficient, and more flexible. So I think ultimately the flexibility part of it is just in the evolution of us as a company. Being proactive and efficient is to really signal to our department or our division leads as a whole of where they are managing their workforce appropriately versus where they are not. And so one of the things that PlaniFi really gave us the ability to do was have it as a prepackaged content tool, but then with the ability to have the flexible inputs, to have the flexible logic kind of overhauled on top of it. Because as we are integrating our workforce planning and a lot of our FP&A reporting tools as a whole, we are also going through an SAP S/4HANA implementation as well. So that means both from a FI standpoint and then also from a success factors standpoint. So there's been a lot of things where we've had to kind of set the guardrails in place that were currently not there before, that really kind of broke everything down as far as people and having the buy-in to kind of use the sort of guardrails in place. But then with the PlaniFi prepackaged content, we were able to update our monthly actuals, repopulate all compensation metrics tied directly to success factors, and then we are able to use those automated input assumptions when it comes to medical insurance, employer costs, to merit increase assumptions, to bonus, to everything else layered on top of it. It makes it for a much more seamless process as a whole. So here is just a few snapshots as far as how we are kind of managing from an overall business. I think the biggest things that I really want to emphasize is the fact that we are able to kind of update this in a very seamless way at the end of every month, get our latest sort of underlying information to kind of populate everybody from our hourly employees up to our C-suite to understand what their salary metrics are, what their payroll tax should be by state, but then also have the ability to transfer certain people within from one department to another, but then also to layer in on top so that we're not double counting as far as here are what our actual employees are, here's what the actual payroll cost is, but then also to layer in our open recs as well to make sure that we are capturing the full output and to make it very seamless so that every department knows where they currently stand to what sort of buffer but that they may have. And so how has this kind of or adapted to our whole strategy? And so I think from shifting from a reactive planning to proactive on a data-driven approach has really enhanced the alignment and the agility when it comes to both an FP&A and from a total company perspective. We have a lot more increase and enhanced visibility that at Verano we did not have before. We have forced corporate consolidation and guardrails. So meaning if somebody has to make some sort of change, we can work within the rules that we have set in place, and we can really kind of communicate what those rules and guardrails are. Because at the end of the day, this is very, very fluid, where a lot of things just really kind of emphasize more of a teaching point, more so than anything else. And then within this, we are able to kind of take whatever the inputs but that there are and push it to our rolling P&L forecast and to understand as far as in a much more automated way how our headcount inputs will be effectively for the next 10 months, next 12 months, next 24 months, whatever it may be. So overall, we went live about 18 months ago with our workforce planning solution. Over 55 people at the organization from a corporate perspective have used the workforce planning tool. Most have had positive feedback when it comes to the tool itself. I think the biggest thing when it comes to the people that have given sort of feedback that is not so positive is just more so of a teaching moment at the end of the day for them to understand what they're working with, how to use it, how to analyze it and stuff like that. Because again, SAC as a whole is very, very new. But overall, we are really trying to emphasize this planning environment, this automated environment now and in the future. And so the next steps that we have is kind of working on certain working to flex this model with other metrics to create driver-based forecasting needs based on a grassroots S&OP process that we're currently going through, but then to also work to integrate whatever that we have implemented with other departments as well to structure it as far as certain analysis that they may need that are more siloed to their teams. Exactly. So, but with that being said, that is the last slide.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for your presentation. And I think Kevin will be available later on for the Q&A roundtable as well. But without further ado, let's go into the next presentation. Paul Larson from MTY Group is talking about how one of the fastest growing restaurant ventures are taking workforce planning too. Paul, please take it away.
I am with MTY Food Group. So we franchise and operate restaurants. We have about 7,100 restaurants that, again, are kind of under the franchise model or the kind of corporate store operating model, which is those 7,000 plus restaurants. It covers about 90 brands. We are worldwide. The bulk of our business is in the US and in Canada. MTY over time, I guess we've grown over the years for sure. It's a lot of organic growth for us, but it's also we've kind of grown through acquisitions. So with acquisitions, we have expanded the company, therefore, expanded kind of accounting systems and payroll systems, which I kind of touch on in a little bit. So we began working with Simplify about 2 years ago. So we've gone through 2 budget cycles. The scope of our project was coming from using Excel, and now we're utilizing the Simplify application, which has been great, honestly. So we kind of utilize the P&L side of it, and then also the workforce side of it to kind of combine it all. The PlaniFi application really has allowed us to budget people in costs, in detail, I guess, all those detailed costs that come with people. And then we ultimately are able to get it and move it to the P&L. So a lot of the things that Simplify helped us with is we more or less used the application. We did tweak some things, some minor adjustments to fit our organization. But some of the great things about it is, there's a global input screen that we use that, allows us to, we have ultimately 5 different divisions as it stands today and how we're budgeting in terms of people in the workforce. But the global inputs allow you to kind of do global assumptions for your entire portfolio of people, I guess. So kind of as listed there, merits and taxes and insurance and attrition, we have some differing fiscal periods. So, global inputs that you can put in once and it floats to the whole system. We had templates that were created, that help us kind of manage different pieces of the business, templates that were new hire related or full, just the full employee roster, employee costs, in detail by month, and allocations, within our organization, and ultimately reporting from the HR module into the P&L module. And then, like I said, we've gone through two budget cycles now. This last year, we had kind of gone through an enhancement version, which we ultimately, increased the flexibility and the efficiency of some of our data that we work on. So, the process, like I said, we've gone through 2 processes, 2 budget cycles, I guess, both successful. I would say we wouldn't budget in any other way than budgeting by employee when you look at it from that aspect. But it does add complexities. Ultimately, my view is as soon as you've loaded the payroll data, it's changing, right? There's people on the move, for any organization, for our organization, working with restaurants, there's just a lot of movement of people, and one of the things that was crucial for our success, which again was very much, teed up well and nicely from Simplify, is just testing and validating your data. You go through the whole process, you work through all the details, but at the end of the day, testing and validating, that's really what makes it successful. So, and so we spent a lot of time on that. Having a strong team, to me, this is, if I had one slide, this is my slide. So having the strong team, again, working with the workforce side of it, and our process was, it's still all Excel driven and Excel uploads ultimately from myself and my team. But when you get into compensation items, that's a lot of confidential information. So there's not a lot of people that have access to that. And so, for us, there's limited access. So to me, it's just having a strong team, and the strong team is working, it's the HR and it's the finance side. So I think, as I referenced earlier, we ultimately have 5 different payroll systems across the whole organization. Again, a lot of that's driven from some of our acquisitions over the years. And so, I needed 5 HR leads, 1 for each one. I needed 5 finance leads, that could match each of those HR leads. So our team was small, but everybody knew what they were doing. They had access to the, this, again, confidential information. And then that helped to launch this tool successfully, budget successfully, and be able to, speak to it knowledgeably as you move through the process. So it's definitely a partnership between HR and finance. So from the HR side, from our standpoint, the way that we use the workforce planning is we used it for about 1,500 of our employees. So we have a lot more employees than that, but a lot of them are in our restaurants, and we're not budgeting by person there. So, our scope or our roster was kind of based on mostly who's in our head office. And, we budgeted those wages, those bonuses, those taxes, the benefits, all the things that come with people. The HR team, one of the things that I would say is, outside of having the strong team, we kind of leveraged our HR team during the budget process, and our fiscal year ends in November, which means our new year starts in December. With that said, we kind of started our budget process in, August. So during that August to, October timeframe, I'm kind of asking a lot of our human resource teams, because that third bullet there, they're managing the people in the actual payroll system. They're dealing with real things today. Not that budgets aren't real, but you're planning for the future there. But I had a great team that was able to do their day job, and then on top of that, be able to work with the budget, talk to our budget owners, validate that the data is accurate, and ultimately update this PlaniFi tool as we went through the process. So some of the pieces that they had to manage was the new hires, or things of open and replacement positions, or wish lists is what we call them, or like a budget add, additional headcount for a future year was kind of that wish list naming. We found it to be best practice within our organization, and I would say we didn't get to this until year 2, but the best practice was to budget by employee name. Like I said earlier, 2 years in now, we're not feeding this from any automated system. We're uploading it from an Excel file, which that adds our own complexities, but it worked fine for us because we were able to control the flow of information. That said, as soon as you load up a roster, people leave the company or whatever. But ultimately, what we found is that, from my standpoint, for finance, sometimes I just want to solve for the dollar, and that was kind of year 1, and that's why I say year 2. Our best practice was to say, okay, let's actually budget by employee. If I'm an employee with the organization and now I'm leaving right in the budget process, well, let's terminate Paul in the system, or clear out what he is and what he's bringing for the next year's budget, and let's replace him, with a Henner or with an Eric, and let's replace him with a name, where we can. So that's something that we learned internally as we got to year 2. But it helps a lot for the HR team when they are doing that validation with our budget owners to actually use people that are employed by the organization at that moment in time and kind of doing that validation. From my side, of the finance side, again, we worked very closely with those HR teams, but we did a lot of the data validation. We're making sure that calculations are working, whether it be taxes, benefits, all the stuff, again, that goes into a budget related to people. And then we, in addition to the HR team, we help to report to those budget owners, again, they're people, here's who you have, here's how much they're costing you, here's all the buckets of costs. So all that said, that's all the detailed work, that's all the people in the organization. Well, now I need to get it to the P&L, and I can't put 1,500 or so names on a P&L. One, I don't know that is appropriate to do that. It's all confidential information, right? So now I'm taking all these costs that we've divvied up by month and by all these different segments, and now I need to just push the dollars to the P&L. So we take all of the buckets of, again, these employee costs, and we kind of boil them down into 3 GLs, which was this was one of our enhancements, again, that Simplify helped us this last year to really improve on, because the first year I think we only did 2 or 3, but ultimately we're taking the buckets and we're saying, well, let's budget by salaries, bonus, taxes, benefits, and then attrition. So that that's how we kind of take the details, and we're shoving them into these 5 different GLs in terms of a budgeted dollar amount. And then a big piece, again, a huge enhancement that we did this last year, which again was very much supported by Simplify and helped us work through it, was the validation of the detailed employee roster to the P&L. Again, there's all these people, and we're boiling it down to the dollars. So we had a huge improvement into year 2 on being able to do that validation, which was great. And then one of the complexities that our company does, and I'm sure it happens at other organizations, is just we do allocate employees to different divisions or different brands or departments. We do, like I said earlier, we have 90 brands, so sometimes a person works on more than one brand. So in my little example there, someone might be 90% kind of allocated to one brand, and then they share 5% of their time and 5% of their time to 2 other brands. So it adds complexities to, again, take the one person, divvy it up by all the buckets of wages and bonus and all those other items that we talked about. And then now I kind of have to replicate that 3 times, because now I need a salary number for the 95%er, 90% brand, and then I need a salary for the 5%, and just another salary for the 5%. So it just, it adds more, but again, we had a great bridge on the reporting and the validation, so which is great. So yeah, so the process, we continue on. After our go live, we definitely found minor things, and some things, we would just decide internally and with Simplify's help, do we make the change? Can we make the change kind of as we're live, or do we want to wait till next year? More times than not, we're able to make the change, on the fly, again with some testing, people's availability, but we made it happen. Simplify made it happen. They very much made themselves available to us. We tried not to be too needy, so and then there's always kind of an ongoing approach on enhancing the system. Doing more. So we've created additional screens, or we've additional reports, or we've added more things that we want to do for enhancements for year 3. So we just kind of keep going and keep tweaking the tool, but it's been good for us. I think that is just the internal review or the internal kind of feedback it really has been great. Again, we came from Excel just a few years back. That's a lot to work through. So implementing this tool, a lot of team members on our team put a lot of effort and time into it. But there's been a lot of great feedback over the last couple of years, on both the P&L side, but also the workforce side. It's enhanced our budget process. And yeah, I mean, honestly, that's it. These are my takeaways. I try to hit on them for sure. Having that strong team is crucial in testing and validating your data. And Simplify has made it pretty efficient for us. So it's been a good. They've been a great partner for us. So we've appreciated that.
Thank you, Paul. That was a point landing here as well. And I appreciate you for sharing your insights here. Let me take a look into the questions that we have received for both Verano and MTY Group. One question was around corporate planning process versus the operational out in the individual groups that are supporting the business. I think both business models have a strict separation of the corporate employees and workforce planning process, as well as the people out in the field. Is there any direct tie to those operational planners with the corporate world? Paul and Kevin, this goes out to both of you.
Yeah, so I can start. We have a monthly connect with our state directors. So every dispensary, cultivation site, they are all operating within a single state, and so we have a unique state director for each state that we kind of work with to get those inputs. So we try to make it as cross-functional as possible. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But for the most part, with consistency, it's come a long way from the first time. Again, we're kind of really setting everything up brand new. But yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kevin. Any feedback on your end, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say us running restaurants, we definitely have corporate restaurants, we have franchise restaurants, and a head office. So we're using the tool that was presented today for our head office and getting into that granularity, the detail by employee, and then kind of our field team, more or less running our restaurants. We budget differently, where we budget almost a percentage of sales there, so we don't get into this level of detail. But my team provides additional resources because we are operating in different states and provinces. So we provide some other insight, but we don't necessarily use the tool as we do at the head office.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing, Paul. And the next question is kind of related in terms of collaboration, right? You both indicated that there is stronger ties between the different departments in your respective organizations, in this case, specifically to the HR department. Is there any additional context you might want to give that was not part of your presentation as it relates to that collaboration? Paul, maybe we start with you.
I feel like I covered it the best. I mean, HR knows their people and they know costs associated with them and pieces that belong to each employee, benefits and taxes, and then, compensation packages of varying degrees, and then you have the finance team that, may be familiar with that, but again, looking for building the budget for, profit and loss statement and kind of direction going forward. So just having those ties, those are great. And then, with that, kind of the team of HR and our finance group, we help all of our different budget owners understand, where their wages or their benefits or, their payroll taxes sit as they kind of look to build their budget for the next year, compare back to, well, what was my budget in the previous year, or how did I perform in the previous year? So.
Wonderful. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
Kevin, anything on your end?
Probably not too much. I just think it's one of those, I think it really has emphasized the understanding as far as like how your wages, your benefits, your fringe benefits, everything else like that kind of flows into your P&L, and then just making everybody aware of kind of the impact of one versus but the other when it comes to headcount optimization, workforce planning, resource allocation, to just understand but those components of it. But yeah, I mean, I think it's where the responsibility kind of lies within each individual team, since they are the subject matter experts within their group and what they are designated for. But ultimately, the tool and the clarity behind the data within but the tool does kind of help drive the conversation as far as how it gets represented within your P&L.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, I think this points out the importance of the people interaction in addition to interaction through a platform like SAP Analytics Cloud here as well, right? We're still in a people's-driven world, and there's nothing better than sitting together and having an honest conversation, specifically when it comes around budgets for the next year, if you will, right? Eric, Beth, is there anything that you wanted to highlight here in this context around the workforce planning that particularly stood out as you see it compared to other customers leveraging the workforce planning solution?
On my part, I'm actually going to cover it in my next presentation that I'm doing.
Yeah, I don't want to steal Eric's thunder, so we'll.
Yeah, sorry, I should have foreseen that. Appreciate it. Wonderful. Paul, Kevin, we cannot thank you enough for sharing your wisdom here. I think that's a part of the reasons why we have so many listeners here and online, having signed up to watch it later on in the recording. People like you are helping to make this world a better place, specifically around the professional side of everybody's life. And of course, your companies are doing what they can do in order to also carry this into the personal life of everybody listening. So perfect segue. Thank you so much, Beth and Eric, as well. We now want to go into seeing is believing, right? So we have talked a lot about SAP Analytics Cloud, and more specifically also how Simplify could help with the PlaniFi Workforce Planning Application. But now Eric wants to show off a little bit what we have created and really explain to you how does that even look like, right? Why is everybody so excited about this? How do we bring life into a tool
like SAP Analytics Cloud and really turn it into a solution that it is, in this case, a workforce planning solution. So Eric, please take it away.
Perfect. Thank you, Henner. Well, hi, everyone. So I'm Eric Blondin, as Henner just introduced me. And what we're going to do now is we're really going to go into the tool itself. So no more PowerPoints. Let's really see what the tool can work. Obviously, a lot of you come from different areas. We've done projects in different industries, and some details will be different depending if you're retail or if you're government or if utilities or real estate. So there are differences, but the base requirements, which is what I'm going to go through during this presentation, and I'm going to try to call out a few use cases that would apply in other industries at the same time. I think that's going to give you a good idea of what you can do with the PlaniFi app for HR planning. And then obviously SAC planning, as was kind of talked a little bit about by Henner and Jason at the beginning, is really a platform that we can help you work with to really enhance and customize it for your very specific requirements. But at least with this, you'll have that 80% already done. So let us start. So here you should be seeing my screen in SAP Analytics Cloud. So this is really the platform put forward by SAP. And this is where you would be able to see all our PlaniFi content. So that content, different areas, as we're already explained. But today, since we're focusing on HR planning, I set myself 3 little favorites here. So it's going to be a lot easier for us to talk about it. So talking about the flow as to how we're going to be going through it, we're going to talk about initial, what I call global assumptions. When you start HR planning, you always have someone who's responsible for managing that cycle. So when you set that cycle, so what's going to be the budget version or forecast? You're talking about HR, so what are the benefits that apply? What are the company taxes that need to be applied for your employees, depending on their countries and everything? So those are the global assumptions we're going to go through. Then once that's done, once you've set up all those general parameters, brought in your actual list of employees, this is when the application admin can push out this planning to all the other planners within the company. So HR managers, other people who are owning their cost centers, who manage their different HR costs, you will be doing this in that process that we'll talk about. And the third one, it's not really kind of an extra process. It's more, there are a lot of different scenarios where we need to bring in new employees. We know they're coming. How do I manage that in the plan? Because I want to add it, but if I do a recycle and that person is in, how do I manage all these things to make it as efficient as possible? So in that context, I'm going to call out a few different use cases that we've used left and right, because that is one of the areas where each company has their little special way of wanting to manage new employees. Some, it doesn't matter. It's very straight, just an amount. Others, they'll have some specifics that I'll talk about. First, let us go in global assumptions. I've opened those tabs already. So global assumptions, here we're seeing for Canada, a lot of different taxes depending by province. So you can see, depending if you have employees in different provinces, you have the maximum. That's a concept that applies in most countries. So for this tax code, there's a maximum, there's a rate. And so with that rate applied, when the salary reaches that amount, you stop applying that tax. So you don't need to try to estimate those in Excel, make your adjustments. You do that in that global assumption, and all employee salaries you'll bring in, it's going to apply those maximums to the year you're planning in. So for example, here, this was a budget set up for year 2025. Now, let's say we are now trying to plan 2026. Okay, our fiscal 2026, how are we going to manage all of this? This is where we can easily take previous year's values, because maybe government hasn't issued the new values yet. We don't know what those new values are going to be that far out. So let's go with the ones we have right now. I'm just going to copy them in the current year, and then I'm going to be able to start. Everyone understands those are the assumptions. We build out the plan, and you'll see how we build out that plan. And once we get closer, we get the real values, usually a few months before the actual year starts, can come here, change those, just rebuild the forecast. Everything else that was entered by the planners remains the same. It's just going to apply those new updated rates, and then you'll get the updated cost that will really happen. And typically here, we're really tracking the employer costs because those are really the ones that will come out of your cost centers. Okay, so we have this. In this case here, we have Canada, we have the US, so I could have decided to just remove Canada so we can see 401k limits, FICA, FUTA, same logic that I just explained. You mentioned this, and depending on where you're located, what your business is like, obviously we can add more taxes for different countries. Where is your focus? Some international companies will have just a flat rate for the whole country. It's like they won't go into the detail of each tax account. But if your main business is in 2 states or 2 provinces, maybe you'll focus on what those costs are so you're really able to lay them out. In the end, maybe you'll put them all in one account for the actual cost tracking. But as you're planning your HR costs, you may want to have additional visibility there. So this is what you're able to do here. Then the other part that is important from a global assumption perspective is how do you want to spread those values? Because again, when you're planning, you're going to have your annual salary. So how does that annual salary spread out throughout the year? So do the costs vary in different months? So here we have different customers. In this case, it's going to be straight, even spread across the whole year. So that's fine. A lot of customers do that. They don't want to plan. There's more days, there's less days, whatever. Let's make it flat. We don't need that level of detail. Some other companies, they're going to want to go and say, okay, no, I want to have by number of business days, not business days, sorry, those are actual days, and I'm going to add those and bring them out. And when I'm going to spread my values, in this case on 2026, it's going to spread it proportionally to the number of days in those months. And even more so, we have other customers that will want it by work days. And sometimes different company codes will have different number of work days per month. And you can actually, in this case here, we're not doing it by company code. It's really the whole company that's doing it according to this. But you could have a calendar like this for each company code, which then spreads your overall salary throughout the year based on that kind of rule. Okay. So again, this is managed by the application admin. You don't need to go into too much detail. And then in this case here, we also had another one, for example, each state has their SUTA rate in the US. So instead of creating a line in the previous screen on top of all the other ones, we created a SUTA specific. So again, small adjustments, depending on how it's being used. Sometimes we'll just adjust that screen so it's as efficient as possible for your process. Finally, the last step the application admin will manage is bringing in all those employees. So dimensionality, as Henner mentioned at the beginning, our sources can be just about any HR planning system, payroll system. So if it's ADP, if it's Workday, if it's SuccessFactors, obviously, which is one we integrate natively with the most, you bring in that information in here and you'll have your entity, company code, cost centers, the actual employees, are they active or not? What are their positions? What kind of FTE is it, part-time, full-time, and location. These are the critical ones for that base process to work. You want to have locations. Taxes are dependent on work location. So if you don't know in which state, province, country they are, obviously applying those rates we talked about earlier, that's going to be quite a challenge. Everything else then, it's really, is it a full-time employee? Is the employee active? These are really basics. And then cost centers, well, we always want to bring those costs in the end at a cost center. And we'll see a bit later, cost center planners sometimes have benefits or other costs that are specific to their cost center. So you'll want to maintain them at a cost center level. And when they run their plan, it gets applied to the employee. So we then have full-time FTE and headcount. We see the part-time ones, the FTE and headcount are a bit different. It allows us to do some different calculations. Is the person, when was that person starting? When is that person ending? So if it's a full year, 1 to 12, that works. If we know someone is going to leave mid-year, we could put a 6 in here when we're a planner. But here, initially, this is what is coming out of the HR system. So SuccessFactors, bring that data in, bonus targets, base annual pay, commission targets if they are in there. So all that information, the application admin makes sure this balances, this corresponds to what is expected, and if it's all good, we balance the total salaries, that works, that's exactly what is in the source system, that's what we need to plan on. And this is when he clicks on prep employees for planning. The moment the application admin clicks on this, we actually get all the planning area ready, and then the planners can go in. Okay, in this case, I had already clicked on it, so I'm going to click right away. This is where the main screen would be for the planners, cost center planners. So they come in here, and typically, even more so if it's only budget. In some cases, there's going to be forecast, but most cases there's a yearly budget, and then forecast is much more aggregated. It's not employee level, so you don't go at this level anymore. So every year, people will forget, what do I need to do? What's the order? What do I need to do first? So we always make sure to create a clear process that corresponds to your process. These are just drag and drop items that you align, and we can also add comments or documentation in here. You'll see it in a few minutes. I'll have it in another screen where they don't know what this is for. They could have just an icon, click on it, explains what is going to be necessary there. So they come in here, and first, as we saw for the global assumptions, cost center planners have some assumptions they may need to maintain. Again, that depends on your business process. But in our business here that we're planning for, they will plan some benefits at a cost center level, and they will also plan some alternate cost centers. A good example, if we go with a presentation you just had from Paul, he has employees that will work for MTY, but they actually work for different restaurant brands. So depending on how they're allocated, the overall cost, yes, it's MTY, but there's going to be Thai Express there, Baton Rouge there, and maybe Cold Stone. So with this, you have the overall cost, but you want to allocate those costs to those cost centers. So this is a scenario that is right there, and it applies to a lot of different use cases other than the one I mentioned, and I'll quickly go through it. We'll talk about new hires, as I mentioned, and also sometimes master data that you need to maintain that it does not exist in the source system, but some values are critical for a plan to work well. So we'll talk a little bit about that challenge. Another challenge we'll go and cover from a planner's perspective are transfers. You have someone, you're transferring someone to another cost center this year. So obviously at some point you want that cost to disappear from your cost center. But you can't just delete it from your cost center because you still want everything to balance. When it appears in the other cost center, yes, it disappears from yours, but you're in a planning system, and typically you're going to be restricted to your cost center. And so you're not able to write in the other cost center that person is being transferred to. If you were, that would be easy. You need one screen, you just change copy the value in the other cost center, you're done. But the use case here is when you don't control the target cost center. The example I'm going to go through is someone who transfers from finance in the US, finance to Canada, two different cost center owners, but it's the same employee. So you need to be able to manage those transfers. We'll cover that. And then some reporting. We won't really spend a lot of time on the reporting side of it during this presentation, but you know that afterwards you're really able to go into a much more in-depth analytics. So let's start here with benefits by cost center. So here now, I'm a cost center owner. I come in, I'm starting my yearly cycle. So here I'm responsible, as you may have guessed, for East US. So I have all my East US cost centers that are available. And I know in East US, 401k limit is 5%. That's what we're budgeting on. So I can maintain this, but maybe we had an agreement with a different cost center, I'd be able to change it. Allowed annual overtime per employee, $7,000. So that's the maximum amount we want to allow when we plan. So this way, we're going to be able to budget this. Annual other benefits, so very high level, and maybe insurance benefits are by cost center. In this case, maybe all the East US ones are the same, but if I was to look at the Canadian one, that would be different. So maybe I want to manage this not by location, but really by cost center. So this is, again, an option you have. You maintain these in these screens, and once you're good, you're applying those assumptions to all the employees that correspond to your cost centers. once I have my benefits set up, sorry, clicked on the wrong thing. Once I have my benefits set up, it's the alternate cost center scenario I mentioned earlier. So you come in here, and so you have your employees. In this case, it's by employees. I've had scenarios where it's actually a cost center. So everyone who's in a specific cost center has a clear allocation, key for that everyone in that cost center. That may make things easier. In this scenario here, we were applying those allocation keys for each employee. So maybe more maintenance depending how many people you want to allocate. So you have all these people here. And in this case, so you can see 100 and 100. Maybe this one here would be 75 and 25. So you have these values. So you're setting up all those different allocations. You can maintain them. Maybe you also don't want to input those. You already have someone in an Excel spreadsheet somewhere because this is operational. You want to apply it to your plan, but it's maintained somewhere else. You already have those numbers because, I don't know, maybe the breakdown you had last year is the same one you want to keep this year. So based on actuals, you define this, and it's going to change. You're always going to have to adjust that Excel file. So you adjust it in Excel, and you can just upload. So you have a file somewhere. You want to upload it to your budget. You're working on a budget. Just select your source file that would contain your percentages, and you run it, and it's going to update this form based on that Excel spreadsheet you have lying around somewhere that contains that data. So you don't need to come and maintain it here. It always depends on how many of those you need to maintain as you go through your process. Excuse me. So that part is done. So let me just go back. I'm not going to save this. What am I doing? That's the global assumptions. I don't know why I'm going out every time. So now I'm back to alternate cost centers, and I've done my assumptions. I put those. Next step is the new hires. So as I mentioned earlier, new hires in a planning cycle is always can be a challenge. Maybe you have those upcoming hires that are listed somewhere, maybe even in SuccessFactors. You have all that information available. In that context, you'll just upload it. That's easy. That makes it very easy for you. But that's not often the case. It's not maintained everywhere, or the IDs are different, or there's no link between the employee or anything. So in this case, sometimes it can be as simple. You want to use standard functionality. So in this case, that's what I'm going to be doing. Let me use standard functionality. I have my new hires in here. I have Canada, I have US. So sales for Italy seems to be done from Canada, from what was entered here. But maybe I do want to enter someone else that will start working from Canada. So I can use standard functionality. Here, there's no development. This is out of the box SAC, add a member. So I have sales Italy, and then I'm going to go sales. I'm going to select Canada. So I'm actually hiring someone. Now it's suggesting the other values. I can keep them, or I can go and change them depending on what I want. So yeah, Ontario is fine. And in this case, maybe I'm just going to put new hire 3, maybe. So I can use the ones that are there, or I could decide to, again, based on security. So new hire 1, 2, 3, pretty sure this one doesn't exist. So maybe I'm going to create it for which I then have values I need to fill. That's the new hire I'm creating. If that's a process I want to use, obviously that implies you need to manage master data, and sometimes you have the hire ID that you'll want to put here. So that's going to allow you to link it to when the actual position starts. In my case here, I'm just going to go back to my hire 3 I was doing, and I'm just going to select this one. So, and that person's position is not VP marketing. I'm going to, again, change it. So sales. So that person is going to be sales manager in Canada, Ontario. And then I can just input the rest of my values if I want to use the same that was there before. Oops. So, and when you make a mistake, that's actually, I could have done this on purpose. You can always go in your version history and say, oops, I did not want to do that. Let me backtrack one step. And now I'm going to have to start over creating that line, but at least I didn't copy all those salaries to everyone else. Okay, so that's an easy way, standard, creating new employee. But sometimes if you have dozens of them, that may not be the most efficient way of working. With some companies, we've also used the FTE when you hire people for a new call center. You have 40 people at once. So you just put a 40 average salary and so forth. So again, using standard, it makes it quite easy. But there are a lot of different scenarios, and sometimes you cannot do it with a standard form like this. So in this context, I'm going to go back here and master data, upload, and generate. So in this case, what we're saying is, instead of creating those inputs, we're going to go and directly maintain the master data table. Now, this is something I typically would not recommend unless you have one person who manages this and that person understands what that means, because the employee dimension is literally a table in SAC where you have all your employees listed. So you can go and create those new employees. So employee ID, name, there's a hierarchy, how they're grouped together that we're seeing when I was going to the employee listing and everything. So I can enter it, can enter all those fields. So it's like an Excel spreadsheet. I can paste everything in here. So this is something you can do, but only one person, and that person really needs to understand, because here the security is wide open. So maybe not something you'd want to use in all cases, but smaller businesses sometimes will want to use that process, makes it much more efficient, and they say, yes, that's fine. I'm the manager, I'm going to be managing all of this. I don't mind if I can do this, and I'll leave it for myself only. Finally, the last part that is very typical in this context is creating, and that one is a bit more custom, but that's one we've done with a lot of customers as well for new employees. And again, the custom form scenario applies to just any part of the process, but that implies a bit more additional development, because when you create a custom form like this, you define what are the forms you want to, what are the fields, sorry, you want to maintain. You can make it that the new employee ID is incremented automatically, so you don't need to maintain it. In this case, we made it that we can still change a number here, but you can make it that people can't change it. The system will generate that iterative number. You define the position you want. So if I'm looking for manager somewhere, I have all the managers here, and I can select the one that really applies to what I'm doing. Then country, location, entity, company code. Do I want car allowance or not? So again, this is specific to a scenario. Will that person have a cell allowance or not? You put the value here. When does he start? What month does he start in the process? What month does he end in the process? And then that will create that new hire in this form. So much more guided. And we've even had more complex forms like this where the target salary for the new hire is maintained in a separate database. People who type in the FTEs shouldn't know the salaries. So they put in those FTEs, and then afterwards there's a job in the background that will come, okay, based on the information that was put, position, location, company code. This is the typical salary that's required. It's going to put that in the budget. No one needs to manage it. And then finance manager who sees the overall cost at the end can see, okay, yes, costs are assigned everywhere, but we've restricted how many people can actually see those salaries are coming in budget. So really, you can restrict it or open it as much as you want. Really depends on what your requirements, your objectives, and how you want to get there. Okay. So that's for the new employee form. So we've done that now. Benefits, alternate cost centers. We've talked about adding new employees. Now the other challenge we often have during a planning cycle that I mentioned, transfers. So if I go here, initiate transfers, I'm going to go in this form. So now I'm responsible for just about, in this case, I'm responsible for just about anything. But let's imagine my job is I'm responsible for sales. So I come in here, I have general admin, which has finance. I said sales and I meant finance, sorry. I'm responsible for finance and general admin. So now I just change it. I only have people who are and DNA and finance. So those are people here. And excuse me, just a minute. Sorry about that. So now I have all my employees, and sometimes maybe employee IDs won't mean much to you. Maybe you do want to see the actual name of those employees. So this is always something, as person who uses these forms, you can customize that. I only want the IDs. I don't want the custom. In some places, people only want to customize their IDs. They don't care about the descriptions. Other places, it's the opposite. So again, the end user can always customize this and then save their template so that at least those basic settings remain as they move forward. So now I'm going to transfer Jennifer Smith. She's in Finance East, and we're seeing her in Finance East here. So I'm going to take her, and I know that in period 6, she's going to be transferring out. And some customers, we don't need to input it. Some customers, there's some people that are temporarily transferred. So in this case, where we put an end date, in my case here, I'm saying end date is last month of the year. So I know that person is transferred till the end of the planning cycle. But we've had some customers where, yes, during summer, we're going to transfer a bunch of people, and then they're coming back. So we put the 6 till 10, and automatically the plan takes over that kind of temporarily transfer. So Jennifer, I know I'm transferring her there. So now that I've defined this, I'm going to initiate transfer. And now it's going to ask me, okay, this is I'm still working on my budget. Who am I doing? So right now I need to enter the employees because I may have put multiple transfers, not all transferring where I want to put it now. So maybe I want to do them one by one. I'm going to show on a subsequent screen that you can also automate this. So Finance Canada, so transferring Jennifer Smith to Finance Canada. She was in Finance East US. So I'm going to run this. And then I'm going to see that I've submitted a transfer. So I cannot write in Finance Canada, but I'm owning the Finance East US, and I've submitted that transfer. I can see that it's here. So until it's processed, I'm going to see it on my planning screen, so I know it's outstanding. Next step, this is the admin process. So admin process, I would call it that, but it's really can be just a background job. So you can schedule it every 15 minutes. Let's just check who submitted transfers because, as mentioned before, I own Finance East. I cannot write in Finance Canada. So if you have an admin job that can write anywhere but can only take what other planners have inputted, it's going to pick it up and transfer it to Finance Canada. So in my case, this is not scheduled in our environment, and I know there's one outstanding right now that's lying. We actually see here, transfer submitted, Jennifer Smith from Cost Center Finance East. So this is all we're seeing at the admin side. Okay, that was submitted. Let me admin, and obviously the fields that are shown are customizable. Run this. And now we know we have 4 of them that are waiting to be approved. I then go into the target cost center. Okay, so now, well, in this case, I'm seeing as East and as sales, sorry, but I actually transferred Jennifer in finance, and let's imagine I can see finance as well. So I have Jennifer here. So now I can just go click Jennifer and approve. By clicking it now, earlier I inputted the name. Now this screen, we just defined it. So you click on it, approve, it does it automatically. So any of those that I have access to, I can just select it, Georgia Lee, approve, and then Georgia Lee is going to be approved. Just so we made it that the one you select is the one that's approved. So it makes it much more efficient, much more streamlined. But again, maybe that's not what you want. Maybe you want to have additional options. So that's why we always keep all those options open as we define those different processes, and we make those last step details. We do them with you. I did not reject the transfer, so that screen is empty. If I had rejected, I would see here what had been rejected, and I could call the person, why did you reject my transfer, and figure it out. But in this case, I did not reject. And then finally, we have a log that shows all the transfers that were done. So all the transfers that are completed We still see the ones that are still submitted but not applied. And then we see this one. We actually need the admin job to run one last time to just send back to the originating cost center, yes, that transfer is completed. So then we'll see that all those transfers have been completed. So a lot of this can be automated in the background. Here, I'm really going step by step to explain to you. And I mentioned earlier, if you're not sure, some processes are a bit more complex. We always try to embed our documentation, either through text that we have in here, or even link to SharePoints. If you have a SharePoint or other documentation website, you just click on it and then it's going to open the different documents that you need so that really your users at any time can find the information they need for the process they're in. Okay. So now I've set up my benefits, new hires, I've done my transfers. So now I'm really up and I have my actual plan. So these are all my employees that I'm planning. So I have all their information. I see the ones that have been transferred. I see Jennifer here. When we're going to run the job, is going to proportionally apply the salaries in the right cost center. Right now, it's only overall, so I can see overall. So here I could go and maintain and say, well, in Canada, she won't be paid the same amount. So I can make the adjustment here. This is only annual salary, full year. Salary full year. So is it the same as salary? Do I adjust it? Yes, no. If I need other salaries, I need to adjust. I make them here. And then as I run the job, this will calculate and will generate for each employees all my information per month. And all that information will have all the different information, taxes and benefits, cash bonus if there's one, merit pay increase that happens somewhere during the cycle that you've budgeted also in the global assumptions and so forth. And so once you have all this, you're then able to start analyzing your budget from every single angle you can imagine, make it go back, make adjustments to salaries, to assumptions, really depending on where your specificities are, and then you have your budget that you're able to push to your OPEX plan, in which you'll have all those OPEX costs related to HR costs already populated, and you have your HR plan that's already built out. That's all I had time to cover during today's presentation. I hope you found that very insightful, at least as to how HR planning can work on our PlaniFi environment, and I'd gladly talk to you a bit about it a bit further if you're interested in a separate call that we could organize. Now I'm actually going to hand it over to John V, who's going to talk about, okay, we've seen the web. Now, could we do parts of those things in Excel and still work with SAC? So John V.
Eric, one thing before we hand over to John
Yes.
V. Are there any possible triggers through data action to pull the data for employees that are on notice or immediate terminations? Anything like that?
Well, yes, if that information is maintained in the HR system, and I feel that's what you mean. I see there's a Q&R. I assume that's coming from there. So yes, we could do that. We just need to define how is that maintained in that source system, and then this could go and pick it up automatically and update the plan. Oh, there's something else that needs to be updated. So yes, that can be done.
So much. Thank you, Eric, for all of that info on HR planning and for the team with the intros before that. Hopefully you guys can see my screen and you should be able to see the Excel workbook. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so hey, thank you everyone. My name's Janvi Patel. I'm a Principal Solution Advisor here at Simplify. As Henna and Eric had mentioned, I'm just going to quickly go through the Microsoft add-in features with SAP Analytics Cloud. We'll be touching upon Excel, and then we'll do a quick overview of how SAP Analytics Cloud is also integrated with PowerPoint. So we'll take a quick look at that as well. So yeah, as mentioned, just kind of looking into Excel. So it does have an SAP Analytics Cloud add-on. So once you've actually installed the add-on and you actually are using your username and password that you're using to log into the web, once you are logged in, you're actually going to be able to see your data models and actually build kind of templates and reports based on your models and data that's in SAP Analytics Cloud. So right now, I know that we've been talking about HR. The example I have for you that I'll be showing you today is more of our P&L budget balance sheet, P&L income statement. So we'll be looking at more of that income statement statement level. So right now we're actually looking at an example that we have. This example that we have built out in Excel, we have the same template and planning input template in the web UI built out as well. And I'll jump to that in just a second. So within Excel, you can actually use formulas. You know, if you're familiar with Excel, you know, it uses the SAP get formula, and then you can also have the set formula dimensions as well in order to kind of set up these templates to pull in specific information from SAC. So in this example, we've actually set up a SAP get dimension filter that's related to date. And what that's doing is that's actually pulling in the filters based on what we have in our model in SAC and actually making that then available within the Excel workbook to kind of select as well. So at this point, I actually have my date selected as 2025, and that's actually coming in from the dimensions and models that we've created in SAC. So again, this is all of our data that being pulled in from our model. And over here on the right-hand side, you kind of have our designer panel. So this is kind of where, you know, if you are familiar with SAC, this is very similar to what we have in SAC when it comes to building out templates and stories, where we actually use the designer panel. It's kind of like our pivot table where we can actually set up, for example, our income statement that we're looking at here. So we can actually set up our rows, our columns, you know, set up those filters, as I mentioned, with that date that we've just entered, and then some additional filters and information accordingly as well in order to build out some of the reports that we see on the screen. So one of the good things about the Excel add-in and what we've seen some of our customers kind of leverage it for an example, you may have users that are planning at a more granular level that you may not be using that down to that level in SAC when it comes to the planning directly in the web. So this is where you can kind of leverage the Excel add-in to kind of allow your users to have offline workbooks. So in this example, we're looking at another P&L, which is actually just taking our office expense for our supplies down to another granular level, to one more level down, where it's kind of split between our front office and our back office supplies. And this is where, you know, in this example, if users are planning at a lower level, they can go ahead and make some changes. So if I just take, for example, the front office and just make a change to this number, it can actually then be linked to our P&L budget that's actually mapped to the model that's in SAC. And what you're going to see is as I made those changes, it actually updated our P&L at that supplier level for the office expense. And what we can do is we can actually process this data. And what this is going to do is this will actually then push it in to our analytic cloud, where we can see those updates automatically as well. So this is actually the same income statement for our budget planning that's actually in the web UI. If I go ahead and refresh this, we should see the update for April accordingly as well. So those changes that are being made in Excel can actually be reflected right directly into the web UI. So you're getting that real-time kind of updates and changes and calculations being made as well. And then in addition, you know, as Eric mentioned and you saw during the HR demo, you know, as changes are made to data points in the system or in the platform, they're actually reflected in that yellow color. So we can see how that kind of impacted our office expenses, and then we can see that in how that impacted our overall operating expenses, and then going down further into our P&L and all those additional numbers as well. So, you know, in addition to kind of building out some of these planning templates essentially like this, you know, we can also use Excel to kind of build out some of our financial statements and report books. One of the things I do want to point out, though, is that with regards to using Excel, I'm sure that everyone's familiar with some, you know, you are limited to the graphical visualizations that Excel offers, whereas within the web UI, there's so many more visualizations and applications that you can use out of the box as well. So, you know, it is great to have the Excel add-in, but, you know, as an organization, we do kind of push people more to kind of use the web UI when it comes to kind of doing reporting and planning. And then, of course, definitely to take advantage of using the analytic features and the visualizations in the web UI. So that was just a really quick overview of kind of the Excel add-in with SAP Analytics Cloud. What I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly jump over here into PowerPoint. So similar to Excel, there is an SAP Analytics Cloud add-on for Microsoft PowerPoint as well. And again, once you are logged in, you're actually able to access your data and some of your reports. And as you'll see here, we'll access some of the visualizations that we've built out in the web and actually be able to kind of add them into slides, which we can then actually distribute across the organization or maintain additional information and then distribute them. So now that I am logged into SAP Analytics Cloud, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm looking at our P&L report book. So this is actually a report book that we built out in the web, and it has some visualizations available. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and select our operating income bridge report, which is our actuals versus prior year. And this is the same operating income bridge that we have on the web, which I can actually then kind of use this to add this to my PowerPoint. So what I can do is this is where I can start building out some reports if I needed to as well. And this kind of allows us to bring in visualizations directly from the web UI with that reflect our actual data accordingly as well. In addition to the bridge report, there are other visualizations or other type of aspects that you can bring in. We can also go ahead and actually bring in some KPIs that are in the system as well. So here we're kind of looking at our operating income at that total year level. What I can actually do is based on what I wanted to show in the system or within my PowerPoint slide, I can actually drill down into the data. Again, we're actually using the data that's in the web UI, so we're able to drill through into that lowest level that we want to be able to see. And again, I can continue to drill in down to that lowest level, and then I can actually add that information to my PowerPoint as well. And then of course just kind of move things around accordingly and essentially add some additional text with regards to what our KPIs and our bridge report are showing, and then again share this out within the organization. I did want to just point out with some upcoming features that are upcoming release of some additional features that are going to be in the add-on for Microsoft PowerPoint is with the generative AI aspect of the tool and the platform, you're actually also going to be able to use the platform to kind of build in those descriptions and context about what the variances are that you're seeing in your data. So with that generative AI capability, what's coming in the future with this add-on is the ability to also kind of automatically create that text. So for the bridge report, we can actually ask AI to kind of give us a quick bullet point or sentence on what's going on with our data that we can actually then include in our report as well, accordingly as well. So making it really easy to kind of build out these reports within slides if needed, and then bring in some of those descriptions and information with regards to what's happening with your data at your organization as well. So that was just, again, what my intent for today was just to kind of give you a really quick overview of kind of the add-on features within Microsoft Excel and also PowerPoint. I'll just pause here to see if there are any questions. If not, then I will hand back to Henna at this point.
Thank you, Jambi. So what is next? Remember, PlaniFi Workforce Planning Solution is your roadmap to harvesting your investment in your workforce, independent from your ERP or workforce management platform. That's number one. As you've heard from both our guest speakers, collaboration between HR, team leaders, finance, and IT is key, and the PlaniFi Workforce Planning Solution enables this collaboration. And the last one is really do not rest on a mediocre or outdated planning platform, or even worse, on spreadsheets. PlaniFi Workforce Planning is a module of the most innovative integrated business planning platform there is. A little bit of housekeeping. In order to keep our engagement with you and our community up and running, there's two major events happening in the early summer. One naturally is SAP's Sapphire. One or the other of you might go there. Please take the opportunity and meet us and our experts at Sapphire. It's difficult to arrange something on the show floor, so easiest is to join one or both of our events that we're hosting there. I've put the QR codes down here. When you get into the slides, you can also click on the slides for the registration pages. We have a wonderful kickoff into Sapphire on Monday night when you arrive at the Bahama Breeze. And on Wednesday, just before Zach Brown Band, so between the final keynote of the show and Zach Brown, we invite you for a couple of drinks at the pub. We'll make sure you get on time to Zach Brown. We have some transportation organized, either a bus ride, or we provide you with lift capabilities to get there. The second one is our own Planning and Analytics Summit in June 18th and 19th in Nashville, Tennessee. So we have lined up a couple of very, very smart and innovative guest speakers here from different companies that are leveraging our EPM applications. So also here, there's a QR code at the bottom right. Please register. Seats in this case are extremely limited. And we're just starting to promote this this very, very big event. It's our annual event. Usually we hold it in Chicago. This year we felt like we want to move somewhere more towards the south because it's a wonderful place to visit. What are what's next, right? Connect with us at Simplify for a virtual assessment of your situation, right? So scan this QR code. Or send a Q&A here in the Q&A section, or send me a note, and I will arrange for a meeting, right? Of course, you can also connect with your SAP account manager and ask for an introduction to Eric or myself or Janvi or Jason or anyone in our company. And yeah, the last bullet point, is there's a typo in it. We will have another session in June, on June 12th, and not today. Please make sure that you let everybody know in your company who wanted to visit us today here and was not able to make it, and route them to June 12th is the next one. Yeah, follow us on LinkedIn. You get invitations to events like this firsthand, and you don't have to wait for anyone else to invite you. Look at our YouTube channel. We have tons of material there, going into demos, going into explanation. It's kind of a free enablement, free education for you guys out there. There's hundreds of videos up there. We will post a recording of this one probably there as well. And of course, go to our website to make yourself acquainted with our EPM solution portfolio that we offer in order to support you guys on your journey into some innovative integrated business planning scenarios for your organization. So thank you to all the speakers, Eric, Janvi, Jason from our team, but also Kevin and Paul from our loyal customers, Vrana Holdings and MTY Group. This concludes today's deep dive, and reach out and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon. Goodbye.